All right, Joe, tell me when you're ready.
Listen there, sir.
It's been like 4.
It's so much fun.
No, it's not. Ready?
Right.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting of the Munster Planning Commission for Tuesday, July 11th, 2023 to order. Please set your phones on stun and let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hello, Jill. Please call roll. Our executive secretary isn't here, huh?
And then for the stand. Rachel Branigan. Andy Colbert.
Present.
Leanne Mellon. Present. Roland Rapp.
Here.
Brian Speck.
Here.
Steve Zalewski.
Present.
And Willie.
Present. We have a quorum. Next up is the approval of minutes from June 13th, 2023. Any modifications, motions, what say you?
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I would just note, it says mistakenly meatball restaurant.
It's closed. So the motion and second, any other discussion? Mr. Wickling, do we have to do roll call still? We do.
Rachel Branigan. Yeah. Good. Right. Sorry.
Yes.
Approved. Yeah. Andy Colbert.
Yes.
Leanne Mellon. Yes. Roland Rapp.
Yes.
Brian Speck.
Yes.
Steve Zalewski.
Yes.
Bill Baker.
Yes. Moving right along, I'm going to take a little liberty here in so much as Community Foundation is in the room and I don't see anybody else. I want to move the public hearing for PC 23-12 for Mr. Dave Oddie, Community Foundation, Northwest Indiana, to request the approval of the amendment to ordinance 1206. Business plan unit development to accommodate in addition to the existing diagnostic center building in block 2. Jill, usually protocol, give me a little background on this, please.
We have Rachel Branigan, Rachel Christensen on the line. Sorry, Rachel.
No problem. Okay.
And she will present her staff report.
Yes, we saw this at the preliminary hearing last month. There have been a few things that we did follow up on the site plans. Last meeting we talked, there was just a discrepancy in a sidewalk size that did get changed by the petitioner. There was some clarification on what the chiller yard would be screened with, and the petitioner did tell us that it would be screened with white PVC decking boards that have a similar look to the enclosures provided on the west side of the structure, so it's being consistent with the rest of the site. The one thing that we still had, a slight issue with, we asked petitioner to address the location of the light pole that is directly east of an entryway to the structure, and they responded that their design team is working on it and is planning to eliminate the light pole and provide wall pack lights along the new addition instead, because that we just had some concerns that it would be a accessibility issue. So with all of those changes being made, we are recommending approval of the petition as presented.
Somebody speak on this regard, Mr. Oddie. State your name and all that good stuff.
Dave Oddie, 15014 West 153rd Lane, Cedar Lake, Indiana. Seeking approval for 1,900 square foot addition to the CDC building, 10,020 Don Powers Drive for an MRI CT addition. The building will be exactly matching the existing masonry, EPDM roof, structural steel. Parking, we feel we have adequate spaces for the parking. We'd like to get started right away.
Thank you. Bring it back to the commission. Is there any questions for staff or for Mr. Oddie before I open the public hearing aspect of this? Going once, going twice. All right, I'm going to open the public hearing. If anybody would like to speak on this matter, please come up to the podium, state your name and address. Packed room, once, twice, 3 times, bring it back, close the public hearing.
We did have people online, I don't know if anybody.
Oh, okay. Who's running them, Rachel or you?
I am running,
Okay.
I'm doing everything.
You're doing everything.
Anybody raise their hand on those?
I don't see anybody with a hand raised.
Okay.
Jill, as we go, if I see anyone raising their hand too, I'll speak up and let you know in case you miss it,
Okay.
because I know you got a lot on your plate right now.
Turn my head to see it and I'm
Yeah.
forgetting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I will make a motion to recommend approval of PC docket number 23-012 to amend the ordinance 1206 to allow the CFN business plan unit development to accommodate an addition to the existing diagnostic center building in block 2.
there's a motion. Is there a second? And a second, any discussion? Either none. Joe?
Rachel Branigan. Yes. Andy Colruyt.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's watching them walk in.
Leanne Mellon. Yes.
We're all standing outside, the doors are locked.
Oh.
It's a whole group of people.
Yes.
Roland Raffin.
Yes.
Brian Sex.
Yes.
Steve Chilitsky.
Yes.
Aaron Davis.
Yes. All right, interesting. Next up is,
It was
let's take a break here for a second.
It was unlocked for BZA, so I.
Yeah, the lock was there when I was.
Yeah, the lock was, so the door went shut all the way when I went in.
Somebody opened it.
But someone unlocked the lock and moved it back and walked in.
And it locked.
Worked a little faster to get the meeting.
It's not good.
We're done.
Yeah, I should have asked. Excuse me, folks, any of the people that walked in just now, were any of you going to speak with regards to the community foundation in Northwest Indiana under the public hearing portion? No? Okay, thank you.
All fixed,
All fixed?
so to speak.
All right, next up is the preliminary hearing, and we'll look at this particular PC 2313, PC 2314. Do a preliminary hearing and a public hearing combined. Mr. Wicklund, is that the best way of phrasing that?
I don't know about if it's the best, but
Okay.
it is correct.
Thank you.
Is it legally able to be done?
Yes.
Jill, if we're gonna do it combined, can we just move, can you open up PC 23-13, the public hearing report instead of the preliminary hearing? Because there's a lot of duplicate information, but I can talk about all of it with the public hearing one instead. I just would prefer that if that's possible.
Together, or do you want to do the preliminary hearing and then recommend you go to public hearing and then do public hearing later?
Well, we're going to talk about the same project. Are we going to just do it twice? Or is it more a protocol and a process? We're gonna talk about preliminary, everybody's going to give their feedback, have the conversation, and then open up for public hearing.
That's to you, it's the chairman.
Okay?
Do you want to combine?
Yep,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I have a question. Why are we rushing things through and doing preliminary hearing, public hearings at the same night? Where I get this information on a Thursday, and now it's a Tuesday, and then you don't have proper time to vet this, or, even within the commission, even within the town, and even with the community who wants to gather here.
Excellent question. I think that's a staff question. They're both on the agenda.
Yes, that was at the request of the petitioner, due to the limited time left in the construction.
Instructions. We'll see how it goes.
Well, then where it just makes sense to do the preliminary first then.
Are you more comfortable doing like that? I mean, we could talk about it twice and just follow the agenda. That'd be fine.
I would feel more comfortable doing
Is that the consensus?
My only question was, what do we have to do statutorily for voting? Do we need to take 2 separate votes on these 2 separate items, or if it's combined, is it just?
Well, it depends on what the commission chooses to do.
Okay.
Either one are appropriate.
All right, I tried. So let's try, this is follow preliminary hearing and go through with PC 23-13. Matt Kimball, Centennial Village LLC is requesting approval of amendment to the Centennial Village Plan Unit Development. Revisions to the CV design standard in the site plan to include revisions to the size, location, and shape of buildings I and M. Rachel Christensen.
Yes, that's me. If you scroll to page 2, Jill, you can see an outline of the Centennial Village PUD in its entirety. The piece that we're going to be talking about is along the south side of 45th Street on the southeast quadrant of Calumet and 45th. We are going to be just talking about buildings, the lots where buildings I and M will be located. You can see on page 3, there is a summary chart of the proposed changes by the petitioner. So on building letter I, the building pad will rotate. The use will change from a retail single tenant structure to a commercial multi-tenant structure. The number of floors will increase from 1 story to 3 stories. The maximum building height will increase from 25 feet to 55 feet. The square footage.
Rachel, you're cutting in and out.
Oh, that's not good.
Can you scroll the participants up so that we can see Rachel's video?
Oh, yeah.
Let me try headphones.
Is she there?
Yeah, she's
Is this
putting
any
in-
better? Can you guys
Microphone.
hear me now?
We can't hear you at all.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's try that. Let me know if I'm cutting in and out again and we'll try something else. The square footage of the structure will increase from 5,200 square feet to 22,188 square feet. With the increase in the number of floors, the building materials on the exterior of the 2nd through 4th floor will then be a class 3 and class 4 materials as defined in the Centennial Village PUD. On building M, the building pad will be reduced and moved to the west. The use will change from residential multifamily to retail single tenant. The number of floors will be reduced from 3 stories to 2 stories. And in total, this will be a 6,950 square foot structure. Of course, since the buildings are shifting and rotating, the parking lot area is going to be reconfigured to accommodate the structure location changes. So you can kind of see on that conceptual plan right there, it's highlighted in red where the proposed changes will be taking place. Let's see, if you scroll down to the next page, page 4, this shows what it will look like once the modifications are made. So if you can see what the changes are compared to the original to what is being proposed. You can see that building pad on the left-hand side has been rotated, and then that building M is off the pond now, and it's on 43rd Street. Thank you. I apologize. If we scroll down to page 5, this is my analysis of what the change, it's basically a summary of what is in the Centennial Village standards versus what is being proposed. So you can see a side-by-side comparison. I do have a couple of staff comments, building letter I, the petitioner in their edits on their proposed edits, they were calling it a commercial multi-tenant structure. I'm asking that they use the term retail rather than commercial to stay consistent with the terminology being used in the standards document. If you look down at building materials and architectural standards, everything is really consistent with what else is going on in the site. So I don't have a lot of concerns with those changes, especially for architecture. I think the only thing I would be concerned about is that the parking, we just want to make sure with the change in structure use in the parking lot that we are making sure we have enough parking for the proposed land uses. My recommendation for the preliminary hearing is that we move the petition forward to a public hearing.
So I would assume that we're done. You're talking? You're done
Yes,
talking?
I'm finished.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
thank you. All right, bring it back to the commission as it relates to questions for staff before we bring up the petitioner.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Why are you guys allowing him to build a four-story building right on 45th? When it doesn't even look like it flows with what we have there right now? It's a three-story thing. Okay.
Hold on a second. Not you yet.
Three-story building. That's what I'd like to know.
We are not allowing that. They're just proposing that.
That's what the discussion is tonight.
That's what they're here for.
Okay.
Any other questions? Either none? Is there someone to speak on behalf of the petitioner regarding PC 23-013? Please come to the podium, state your name and address, and let's go.
Matthew Kimball, Centennial Village, 631 Clardy Drive, Dyer.
Russ Posen, DVG Team Inc. with Civil Engineers, 1155 Frontline Road Company. I think the only clarification that I would
Excuse me, sir, could you talk into the microphone, please?
I think the only clarification that I would bring up at this time is building I is a proposed three-story building, not four. I think the other things are generally consistent with the staff comments.
That it?
And I want to clarify too, if I caused confusion, because in my staff report, it does say the number of floors will change from 1 story to 3 stories. It does say in a couple bullet points below that, that the exterior 2nd through 4th floor are class 3 and 4. That is it's a technical in the design standards that's the way that that's termed in that area. So there is not a 4th floor being proposed with building I. That is just more tied to the technical way that it's written in the design standards.
Okay. All right, well, I'll have a question. Mr. Kimball, the original plan had a larger building on the lake. If you can go back, Jill, to the picture before this, that looks like the original, because this was a significantly different drawing than that. So we're only dealing with what's in that red box, correct?
That's correct. And to give you a little bit more background and context, if you look at this is the original conceptual plan included in the design standards for Centennial Village. Now, the town has come to me and said, hey, let's rethink how the Village Parkway lines up with Building N. Building N is the big building on the lake. They asked if that could be separated and switched. So that prompted
Separated and switched from,
Building N was asked to be separated so the sight lines down Village Parkway could see from Calumet Avenue to the lake. So if we move towards it, I'll draw your attention to one other thing. This building here, excuse me, I can't be in front of the microphone, was always an unusually shaped building and probably undetermined what could be used there. So when the town asked for increased sightlines to the lake down Village Parkway, causing this building to be split, this building is essentially being moved to this spot. And so this restaurant building is being moved close to 45th for visibility. And then Building I has always been there. Instead of a 1-story, we think it's best to be a 3-story building, just given the multi-level nature of the mixed-use development as we have other 4-story buildings and soon to be proposed 5-story buildings in that development.
I've been to Centennial Development many a times, and I didn't know it's like back there. I mean, I knew, but you never seen it. You can't see it, so I don't know why we would have, if whoever requested that, because you're not ever gonna see that lake from Calumet Avenue.
All right,
yes, Councilman.
Matt, who, you said staff requested that you had that view? Going down, straight down Centennial Drive, to actually see the lake? Is that what you said?
Staff
Yes, various folks at the town have suggested it would be wise to actually create some visibility down Village Parkway to the lake.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
if you were gonna say something, we have to.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was gonna say several, I mean, years ago, probably more in my first term. That was looked at, and that is something that I actually, I actually said that myself, was that instead, because there was some, there's been talk of having, the pathway that goes along the lake as far as the bike path on this side. And there were some residents that actually came forward too and said, it would be nicer if, since you have Playhole Lake back there, and it can be, it is nice once you discover it, it's nice. So we said, if we can take the retail and split that, so we're not just like blocking off what would be a view. And Mr. Kimmel came up with some options to do that. So that was prompted by myself, some residents, staff, so I can back up that.
Wouldn't that have to be a change, Mr. Wickland, to the PUD if the way the development is reconfigured, have to go through planning and whatnot?
I think it would have to be compared to the development plan.
Right. And then, so with the movement of the building down at the bottom to the up, in the red square, you eliminated the large building that's currently in the red square on the lake. So that square footage is no longer in the mix, is how I'm hearing it.
Yeah, that's correct. So the two buildings that are in the red shaded area there is being rethought. That's correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would also concur with what Councilor Mellon is saying. I received emails a couple of years ago. I think the original plan had something like Building N being a big box type of store, which was not seen as desirable and really does cut down the sense of a promenade towards the lake. I believe there's a resident who lives on the other side of the lake, who's an architect, who had done some renderings and made proposals, just like we had residents who wanted to have the cricket pitch put in. They took their own initiative and came and made presentations. So I think it was through that venue, that at least through a couple of council members, that was relayed. And I believe today, the focus is just on the red box. But in the future, I believe there would be PUD development changes or PUD plan changes for the rest of the architecture. I think Mr. Kimmel is bringing that to bear because one building is moving up. The building N is now will in the future be split into two separate buildings. And so some of the square footage from building, which one is that on the lake? Building M?
This is M.
Yeah. That's moving in and getting a bit smaller, but the big one is gonna split out and may get a bit bigger than originally planned. So I think things are being shifted around, but in order to get this into this construction season, the focus is just on those two parcels today. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Completely well stated. And plus, there's been multiple working sessions with staff and others, some of you on the commission involved in trying to make the waterfront of Playhole Lake more interactive with the development. Therefore, proposed them as a rooftop, uniquely designed facility where you can come right off the walking trail or regional trail right to the restaurant and then kind of interact with the mixed use development and have sight lines and views to the lake from the rooftop.
What was the thought process, Mr. Kimmel, in not putting a restaurant with the rooftop on the water?
It's a combination of it's on the water and it's on 45th, so it's got visibility and it's got if you flip to the next.
Yeah, go to the next page, because it looks like to me, it's more just like, it's pushed up against the sidewalk versus being on the water. And I think, most people, a lot of people would like to be able to sit and be a little closer and not look over cars.
But to Mr. Speck's point about not knowing that the lake is there at times, we want to make sure people understand that the restaurant is there, so you'll have clear vantage point from the height of the topography of the second floor of the restaurant to see the lake. But at the same time, be seen on 45th. We quite frankly think the sight line on 45th going east with Calumet Avenue will be a perfect setup for seeing Windy City Social, the restaurant and the rooftop, inviting you to come visit that restaurant to see the lake.
Matt, which restaurant are you talking, what building can have the restaurant?
Building up. And so that is going to be, have you seen renderings of that?
Great.
So we're included in your package, I believe.
It
Jill,
is,
isn't that, where does the grade start there? I mean, because pretty much that's, you're dropping down the hill to go under the bridge at some point relatively close to that area, aren't you?
Yeah, I think it starts really right over here. And I don't believe that this sidewalk will be put in, correct?
No, that will not.
There will not be a sidewalk along 45th as shown in this.
For safety and public safety reasons.
Yeah.
There's quite a separation, Bill, from the topography of the floor elevation of the restaurant, which is 620. If someone happened to misstep, you'd end up dropping 10 plus feet to the roadway. So we think that the walk along that side of the building is ill-advised.
And we have incorporated paths and sidewalk within the parking area of building M, which has nice lines from North Centennial Drive to get east into the parking lot and the building M, and then continuing east to the bike path. That has been incorporated in the site design for building.
I don't see any renderings.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure that's exactly what you're saying, but without seeing something that gives me what that visual is with the grade, because I'm still of the opinion, you're dropping right there, you're not gonna get as much sideline as I think, but I don't know, you have to have an idea of where it shoots, and engineers do that better than me.
What page is that on?
it's been included with PC 23-015, which was the development plan. So if you can flip over to that petition, we can scroll down to the bottom of it and look at the images with it.
Yeah.
Chairman, can I ask a couple
Yeah,
questions?
absolutely, sir.
Okay, so obviously I know we're talking about these two buildings, but the whole development is, I mean, I think that's important to know kind of where you're at on the current development, obviously the commercial
It's
side.
page 29, Jill.
You continue to want to build additional commercial buildings. I think the development looks nice from Calumet Avenue. I think once you pull in and you get around, there's no parking. People are parking on grass, and the asphalt back there is still the first cut, and it's the first layer.
Binder.
I think it looks not very nice. I know it's a construction site, but at what point where are you on the residential side? We're as close to building the next building. What kind of absorption are you having? Are you getting ready to start the next residential building? When will that come? When are we going to start to see more of the retail rather than the office? And I'm sure that Katie Rose Boutique and some of these others would love to see more rooftops there to continue to support them in the coffee shop and everything else.
Yeah, so the residential component is currently 36 condominium units, of which we've sold 28, close to be 29 soon. So we still have 7 more to sell. So once those are completed, there are several questions, Brian. I'll try to remember all of them in here.
Well, what kind of absorption? I mean, you got 29 and 36. Are you seeing one a month sell? Are you seeing?
About that, what's remaining are the more expensive, larger units. The less expensive, smaller units went first. 4th floor went first. So we're originally, we still have quite a bit of activity. We have an open house tomorrow night. You're invited to come look at it, and many of you have, and thank you for your interest. So we are probably 1 a month, 1 to 2 a month. So the idea is let's finish this building. We've learned a few things. I think we can make the next building or buildings even better. So we're going to tweak the learnings from this, and then move right into the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, starting with, we pull the plan back up. It's pretty clear the rotation we have in mind of what's coming next. This is building G, is the condo that's built already. right south of that, between the hotel and that building is building H. That will be the next one we build and continue to work around the core of the development to go from the building H eastward to the next multi-story building back and finishing.
Okay, so I guess my next question would be then, if you are absorbing one a month. I'm assuming that building's not gonna go up in 6 months. So wouldn't you want to start construction on that fairly soon to kind of keep that momentum going rather than waiting? Because it's gonna take, I'm assuming it's gonna take a year to build. At best,
Yeah, that'd be fortunate. I don't know that we're at one a month per se. I mean, right now it might be one every 2 months. Hard to say at the moment with the current economic conditions. We think that we're still thinking through how to measure the market to make sure the unit mix, unit sizes, and the price points are right for the next building. So we wouldn't start this year, maybe next spring start.
then the next question is on the new building, it's a 3-story building. Are you gonna add all of that parking? So there's some additional parking within the development, because I think anybody that goes there on certain times knows that there's not sufficient parking.
Well, we've done a masterful job, I believe, that actually maximizing parking to create an urban feel in a suburban setting. We don't want a big parking fields, as you know, we're gonna have some.
And I know everybody bikes and rides their bikes and walks there.
Of
I ride
course,
my bike and I have walked there.
And I think what I understand, the idea of it's a walkable community. You're not, people aren't necessarily riding their bikes to that, but once you get there, you park and you go to other places, you don't,
yeah, that's
how I
exactly right.
understand
And
it.
so I, at the peak times, I've been there, I study this, I actually go and drive around. There's always been spots available. You may have to walk a block or a block and a half to get to where you're going, but there are always sites available. We're trying to train suburbanites to be a little bit more urbanites, which is creating, and we have phenomenally positive feedback about what's going on there to create a little bit of downtown feel. We're actually attracting people from urban areas to live there because they're accustomed to this. So when you think about these two buildings, building M and building I, one's an office, professional office, one's going to thrive. The peak parking time is going to be in evenings, weekends. There's going to be no one in the office parking lot. So again, when you start thinking about how we use parking at the hotel versus Harvest Room, Building D, the parking lot clears out by 10 o'clock in the morning and people are plenty of spaces to use those. So these peak time uses of parking are being managed quite closely. And so this would be the same thing here with Building M and Building I, where we have professional office space. We still meet our parking requirements. And we have other options to add additional space. So I think for parking, in terms of where those might be, we can't build all the parking adjacent to M&I because of the way these 4 buildings are built. They're 4-story buildings with subterranean parking, so you can't put parking up against them. Now those, we rip it all out and restart over again. So we're building parking where it's appropriate, and we're not going to have to rip stuff out later.
All right, folks, let's keep in mind, this is for a preliminary hearing. We're still going to go after this again under the public hearing. Any other questions for the petitioner?
Can you give us just, I've been there before, but I know the height of the residential buildings was what, 4 stories? Okay. And those are gonna be the tallest, or are there other plans for?
Well, we can actually go a little higher than that per the design standards. We do have a plan to come forth here in the next couple of months and ask for some additional approvals and advice from you all, which would be a 5-story building, which would make it uniquely different than any other buildings or any other buildings in Munster.
And what would the use of that be?
Well, as you'll see on this plan, we're very excited to talk further at the right time about a hotel, which is a boutique hotel, full service with a 5th floor event center and cocktail lounge overlooking the lake, right on the regional trail, European style boutique hotel. So,
Is that in that upper right-hand corner, Mr. Kimball?
lower right, lower right.
Oh, okay.
U-shaped. this will be the nicest hotel in Lake County. So, and others have seen images of this, right? So it's not a surprise.
Let's say, Mr. Kimmel came to an agenda review meeting a couple of weeks ago, with the council and others who were there, to talk about that. So it is not a surprise.
To you.
To members of this body. And it is just to corroborate that it's not the focus of this conversation today, but it is a really unique building that is not like any other hotels that we currently have.
And I think you've all been in, or at least invited to various working sessions with staff over the last 6 months, and some of you participated for various reasons, and so we're trying to be collaborative with working as I view you are all my partners. So I want to make sure we're aligned.
I would just make two other comments. One is I went to pick my friends up at the international terminal at O'Hare a couple of weeks ago. It was like a 10-minute walk from the parking lot because they're building a parking garage instead of it's a mess because it's construction season and it takes a couple of years to do the type of thing that they're doing. So my friends still wanted to get to Europe and come home. And so we understood that and are excited about what's coming in the future. So if there's parking and gravel and it's a little bit messy right now, we're understanding that there's a vision of something greater coming. I think building these buildings right now, one thing that, as it was presented to us, that's exciting is it enables Mr. Kimmel to start working on the bike path that goes along the lakefront and start planning for improvements to the lakefront area. I know I've gotten a lot of comments around, hey, why do we have this bike path to nowhere? And this will be an important connection, just like Mr. Leeser's building at Maple Leaf Crossing to connect these bike trails. So those were some of the reasons I wanted to share that this coming in this order, from my understanding, is why this is on here.
Any other questions for Mr. Kimmel?
I do have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you consider moving building M towards the lake? I mean, you did give a good reason why, as far as visibility from 45th, but my experience when I drive through there, I'm kind of just going under a bridge and it's nice, but I don't know. I feel like it would be nicer to have that restaurant closer to the lake, and I feel like maybe it's a compromise. I don't know if that's my opinion, but
It's a good question, good observation. Let me see if, once we look at the more detailed site plan, because when you look at a drawing like this, from the trail to the lake, there's a descending, so the distance from the trail to the restaurant is very short. And we have a design trail that goes right to the front door of the restaurant. So it's being connected to the trail and to the lake. I think the visibility is going to be terrific, and we balance this quite nicely, I think, between being close enough to the water, but far enough away where you could see it from Calumet Avenue and 45th. It's going to set up very nicely.
is there any seating on that first floor level, like outdoor seating, or is it just all roof deck?
Yeah, you can see from these images, there's a pergola around the patio area. There's an outdoor fireplace right near the lake. Retractable roof, with leaded doors around the second floor that go up and make awnings, much like Stacks and Valparaiso, who've been there. It's a similar type of arrangement up on that second floor. We'll have terrific views to the east from the building.
That's where I'm going with this. There's a beautiful restaurant at the Indiana State Park, and I know this Clayville Lake is not Lake
I've
Michigan,
been there.
but it's a great restaurant if you're sitting out on that, beach walk and you're just watching people go by. I mean, I personally, if I was at that restaurant, I'd rather be right next to the lake versus looking at cars if I was on the first. So that's just where I'm going with that.
Any other questions? All right, we're gonna do this some more, so we still need a motion if we're gonna move along.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question. When it
Yes.
comes to the three-story building, you haven't had any design renderings of that yet.
Oh, there is.
Did I miss it? Was it what pack was that?
We're not submitted building issue.
Official, but we do have renderings. I can share those with you. It's got the same design features of all the other buildings.
Same magic materials?
Same materials, same look, 3 stories. We actually have the building fully leased. Contingent on approvals.
Sure.
What type of tenants?
The second and third floor are co-working, is a co-work, international co-working tenant.
Hoteler, okay.
With significant connections to corporates around the world. And then the first floor is a medical user.
Oh, you mentioned that third story.
Second and third floor are co-working.
Right, second and third are co-working, and that being a 3-story building there. You've also said there's 4-story buildings, which are the residences already, and the proposed hotel would be 5, so it doesn't seem like 3 stories would really stand out in that location, because in the same parking area, there'd be taller buildings.
Yeah, building I is going to be within 100 feet of the corner of building G, which is a 4-story building, so it's.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna make a motion if you have another
I
comment.
have another question is that if we approve all of these today, there's no renderings of the 3-story building, isn't that a miss?
They will have to come in for a development plan review of building I when they are ready to. When they are ready
So
to
that specific is a whole nother process.
Correct.
see renderings at that point.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Councilman.
Rachel, did you have anything else to add to that?
Yes, I do. And just, this is kind of more about if we're going to do a preliminary and a public hearing on the same night. This has been really helpful for me as someone who has not been with your community for a long time to hear the discussion of this. And it may have influenced my recommendations on a public hearing. Just understanding more what is valuable to the Plan Commission. I have a document that I'm looking at and reading through and trying to understand what the purpose was of the Centennial Village PUD. So I was doing the best that I could with the knowledge that I had. So I just wanted to give you guys some feedback on that as just to consider moving forward.
If there's more things that need to be done, I mean, it could always be tabled, but this is the process.
Right. Agreed. It was really helpful to hear that discussion. So
Yeah, and I think Rachel, when we had the staff meeting, you were unable to attend, and anytime there's questions or background issues or whatever, you feel free to reach out to.
thank you. I appreciate it.
And Ms. Christensen, what you've heard, does that in any way change your proposed motion?
I don't know if it would, not for this one. I think, I still think let's move, I would still say we can go to the public hearing if, obviously if you guys are not comfortable with it getting approved at the public hearing level, that's your decision to make with it. And, I think we're fine to move forward. I just wanted to give feedback on if you guys do this in the future, if it's not me, that's your planner in the future, a new one, it's from my perspective, it's helpful hearing that discussion when you're learning a new community.
It's Tom's fault.
Mr. Chairman, then I would move to recommend approval of PC docket number 23-013 to consider an amendment to the Centennial Village Plan Unit Development with revisions to the Centennial Village Design Standards and Conceptual Plan regarding.
Oh, hold on.
Public hearing.
It's a motion to move.
This is, am I in the wrong, sorry, I'm in the wrong document.
We're on the wrong one.
I went to the one with all the pictures.
We just want a recommendation or a motion to move this docket number 23-013 to a public hearing.
At the July 11th, 2023.
Yes.
Planning Commission meeting.
Yes.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Jill?
Rachel Brannigan. Yeah. Andy Colray.
Yes.
Leanne Mullen.
Yes.
Roland Rath.
Yes.
Brian Speck.
Yes.
Steve Tulowitzki.
Yes.
And Bill Baker.
Yes. Moving right along, next preliminary hearing, PC 23-14, Matt Kimball, Centennial Village LLC, requesting approval of a subdivision. Replat of Lot 8 Creek, 2 new lots, Lot 8, Lot 9, for Centennial Village Plan Unit Development. Ms. Rachel.
Yes. So if we can scroll down to the next page, please. Of course, we're talking about Centennial Village again. So on this one, it is a replat of the Lot A. It would be, you can see on this drawing right here, there's a proposed Lot 8 and a proposed Lot 9. In reviewing this petition, let me get my staff report up on my own screen.
While she's doing that, Mr. Kimmel, are you looking to do something with the bike path during this construction season at this part of the development?
Yeah, the plan is to get our sign work underway soon. We're still finishing up the very southeast part of the shaping of the lake with some additional grading. So as soon as that's completed, the base has already been set for the trail. So we're hoping to get it paved before the.
Even crushed rock or something, just so you have something to get from A to B, if that's possible,
The crush rock is already in place.
for the whole path,
The
so.
whole path, except for that little section that we're sort of moving around and finally.
Buy you some time, Rachel, you ready?
Thank you, I appreciate it. So this one, I'm concerned with the irregular lot shape that the petitioner is proposing. As you can see, the boundary line that's dividing Lot 8 and Lot 9, it's a stair step pattern. When we look at the development plans that the petitioner has submitted on the next petition that we'll look at, this stair step pattern, it cuts through the parking lot that's being proposed in that area. You know, I read through the Centennial Village PUD design standards, and I'm under the understanding that there is not a homeowners association, but a Centennial Village association that is supposed to take care of snow removal. And it wasn't 100% clear to me if that includes the maintenance of parking lots. So that would be something that concerns me. It is something that concerns me because when you have a parking lot and you have a property line that cuts through it, I understand that maybe the petitioner today owns both of the lots. At some point in time, that land is going to transfer to someone else who may not own both parcels. You know, so how does that get handled in the future? Again, I know there is a provision in the Centennial Village PUD standards that says that there has to be a shared parking agreement. However, again, it's just the maintenance of that parking lot. Usually we see lot lines that are following an easement or they're following a building line. You know, last month when we were looking at for hours, the Maple Leaf Crossing PUD, you know, those lot lines were following sidewalks. You know, we tried to push them to have a very clear division of having, you know, all of the amenities on one lot rather than dividing up into two where there would be potentially two people maintaining a parking lot. So my recommendation as part of this discussion, you know, we'll get to that later, but it is, you know, there is a 15-foot utility easement that is, you can see in Lot 8. Jill, if you can kind of highlight that area, you know, that could potentially be something that a lot line follows that could cause less issues in the future. So that's kind of my only concern with it. I think that was all that I had to bring to the table on that one. So.
Okay, folks, so back to you, if you have questions to staff, now this is having to do specifically just with creating two lots out of the one big lot. So that's the discussion at this point. So any questions for staff? Yes, sir. As the petitioner, I have to go through this. Please state your name and address again for the record, please.
Matt Kimball, Centennial
We're gonna
Village.
do this like 5 more times. Thank you.
Russ Posen, 1155 Troutline Road Company.
Okay. Can you all speak to some of the questions with regards to the stair step and the premise that you have for doing that?
Yes, just in the way of background, of course, the original lot was going to have to be divided you know, the original conceptual plan, there was 2 buildings there, so we had to divide it. Now, if you look, you know, with all due respect to Rachel's points here, when you look at the part of Centennial that's already been developed, look at lots 6, 7, 3, and 4. You look at how those boundaries intersect, the parking cut across various uses of the parking lot. It's impractical, I believe, to do as she's suggesting. Because if we took that recommendation along that 15-foot easement, that would make a lot so small and unsaleable that if it was ever sold separately, we'd have no parking on lot A. We'd have a huge amount of parking on lot 9. So we tried to divide it consistently with what we've done in the past with Centennial Village and divide it down the middle of the parking aisle and separate it so it could be potentially sold off if ever needed to be. I don't anticipate that in my lifetime, but you never know. So I think it's a nice balance of land area and division between those uses of buildings with a 3-story building and a 2-story restaurant building.
Thank you. Bring it back to the commission. Any questions for the petitioner?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So between lot 8 and 9, there's always gonna be some kind of agreement on parking as well as maintenance of the lot, landscaping, irrigation, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's built into the leases for each tenant that they're responsible for their own CAM charges, and then actually the site plan delineating where those boundaries are, what's responsible. Now we go through a very detailed allocation of expenses for all those maintenances, so whether it's snow removal, landscaping, and we allocate those directly to those tenants based on the terms of the lease.
But there's a property, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Wickman, wouldn't it be in the best interest of the town to have that in this agreement, like something stated in there regarding
Yes.
in perpetuity that these two share, obviously, because it's kind of hard to sell off one lot, another lot, and delineating the parking of that lot and not maintain it as well as, you know, parking. We have business on Ridge Road that are fighting over parking agreements. Because we never had language in there,
Yeah.
you know, by shoots and stuff, you know?
But there's a property management company that plows all the snow and does all the landscaping for the entire development, correct?
They do, and they have these property lines.
So yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
Okay,
And they divide their building based upon these property lines that are outlined in.
like a pro rata share.
Well, not pro rata, it's based upon how, like, for instance, lot 6 is a little bit bigger than lot 7, right? So it's based upon the square footage and how much work it takes to scope of the work. So they have individual contracts for maintenance for each of the individual lots.
So you don't have like a property management company that hires ABC snow removal and landscaping to do the entire development.
Yeah, I am the property manager,
Oh, okay.
along with others, that we do have one.
But you're plowing the whole place, not just lot 1 and then we're coming.
Oh,
Yeah,
efficiency.
to bring another guy in to do lot 2, right?
Yeah, and to the point that Ron was bringing up, for instance, on lot 7, we don't have a trash enclosure. But we do have one on lot 6, we share traffic flow. We're gonna do the same thing on lot 8 and 9, right? We have oversized trash enclosures, so given the use, the restaurant has a lot of trash, office very little, so we put the trash enclosure closer to the restaurant building. Again, so we have all these arrangements in place in legal documents, primarily in the leases.
How long is that last? 50 years and 100 years, is it the life of the development?
On the leases.
No, I'm just talking about, you know, your agreements with all the different owners, you know, I assume you have like a property owner.
I am the property, no one else is involved on it.
Then the town.
So you're talking, so it's one owner.
I would like to speak up here on this. I think there are future implications on subdividing land like this that we should be thinking of too, because, you know, I think there have been situations where associations like this may cease to exist in the future, and it may not be in the next 30 years or 50 years. But it could happen potentially at some point that as this land, you know, this is a lovely development that's going to be going in. However, you know, at some point, way down the road, this could change. And that land division pattern that we're creating today, it's, I guess from my planning perspective, and Mr. Kimmel, you are just the nicest petitioner, and I just very much appreciate the kind way that you speak as you're talking. So thank you. But
But you want to yell some more, man.
and I mean no disrespect by saying this. I just don't think this is good land subdivision practice. And I do hear you that, you know, on other lots, this did not happen. You know, this is my perspective with my, you know, experience that I've had as a planner, where I've had messy situations where, you know, things that are unforeseen happen. We do have an opportunity right now to, you know, divide this in a way that can lessen some of those burdens on future planners and future plan commissions and the town in the future. So that would just be something to consider. And obviously, I totally understand if plan commission wants to go this way with it. But I just feel like I have to speak up from my professional perspective.
Thank you. And having been in the business to the point where I have to deal with somebody after the fact, after 40 or 50 years, they're paying. So one of the questions that I was going to ask is, instead of the stair step, is there a thought, and it'd been easier if it went over the rendering, but if you follow, you know, north to south against the restaurant, and then at the line that you currently have, take that all the way to the lake, then have the bottom part go all the way to the office building, and then you have the lake over to be able to do that. So both parking fields right there at the bottom stay with the office building, and then you have the other parcel for the restaurant go just straight perpendicular. And then that way,
I'm not sure that that's less choppy, but if I'm following what you're saying, so the current,
definitely less choppy.
well, the current property line, I think, would come something like this,
Right, and then down.
then down,
Yes.
like this.
Right. And I'm just suggesting that it comes into that doesn't go into the parking field, it stays in the access road on the north side of there, but against the building of the restaurant and goes straight east. Up.
Here?
Correct, down the, yeah.
I would never be able to sell this to anybody. We did
With a
that.
cross-access parking agreement, you would.
Well, that's just it. If we have cross access, this is a non-event.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I mean,
But then you can still sell it, and everybody can still park wherever they want to do what they need to do. Then you can still sell it.
we can do that with the stair step. I mean, we have cross easement parking, and so we have no commitment where people have to park in certain spots. So people can park anywhere they want, right? This
Correct.
obligation for building them, they can park here. And
So
building I
the
can park here.
acreage thing more than just the
Yeah,
box.
yeah, so the worst situation is if we actually do something like that, the property tax assessment would mostly go here and very
Yes, it
little would
would.
go here. And that would be a bothersome to these tenants.
There's
And
more of them.
well, there are, but you're gotta look at the restaurant burden does have to have a big parking lot. I mean, to really support their operation. So they should be paying more than what you would have if you just had this section. So I know we could probably debate this, but I sort of have a view that I'm trying to be as fair as equal to future tenants, future users, and the future market of buyers and sellers.
You're trying to make the lots the same size.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I deal with buyers and sellers in the market all the time. I buy real estate, I sell real estate all over the country. I see this stuff. It's not that unusual. Matter of fact, I'm doing another development that's got the same situation.
I mean, the property tax lens or angle on that seems to make a lot of sense. There's daily implications for that as an owner of your home, bigger property. You know, more property means more property tax, and
More square footage.
I understand the input of potential disagreements in a future situation, in a negative future situation. That seems less real given the parking parking agreements than the immediate and kind of daily or yearly fact of how much property tax the tenants and owners of these buildings will be paying. So it makes sense to me, like that lens seems to outweigh the parking lens to me.
Yeah, we really did try to be earnestly consider all the factors of allocating future expenses, future operation issues, given the uniquenesses of Centennial Village. And I've been living it for years, so I have a very detailed insight as to how
Yeah.
we should separate them.
It seems like a worse situation for the town if there's a lot that's impossible to be sold in the future because of how the property line is drawn. That potential conflict between future tenants decades down the road that they want different people to file the lots.
Any other questions for the petitioner?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just a question. So what would be your advice? I mean, I don't have a problem with stair stepping it as long as all the agreements are in and it's, you know, cross asset access easements and obviously serviceability of the parking lot as well as maintenance and everything else. That's something that should be in motion specifically, or are we 100% sure it's covered in the developmental agreement that can be spun off at any time, different partners pieces?
I think the staff has to delineate exactly what you're talking about within the document.
I guess, is there a recordable document on the title policy? Is that cross easement and everything all recorded?
Should be. Should be.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I mean, he's just said he's familiar with it and he does it all the time. So, I mean, is that
We
Was that
checked
easement
about that. We
an
could,
agreement?
this situation, we could actually make those as part of the deed, that there's cross parking rights, record it that way.
Is it not done? Is that easement agreement and discussion not recorded in any of the other?
Or
I
else
mean, you own all of it.
I-
He owns all the buildings, so it doesn't make any difference, but
Building
still.
BCD, I have to go back and look at those and whether there is or isn't. I don't think, but I'm not sure whether they're recorded on the deeds.
Well, wouldn't you want that for Rosebud and El Salto and everyone else? But you seem to, and we're stating we want to use that as a communal parking lot. Shouldn't that already be in all the deeds for all those other buildings just to protect future owners? If you do spin off Rosebud or someone spins off the Guitarro building later on. And we're not fighting like we have on Ridge Road and Shoots where everyone's saying this is my lot, you can park here, you can park here.
Yeah, and well, we've got it built into the leases, the operational.
It's in the leases, but those leases go away in the future, and if you and I aren't here in the future and someone else.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, I mean,
You know.
because that's practically what's happening. So
Right.
I'm okay in this situation is putting the costs either in the deed itself or have a separate,
You have a parking.
I have
easement.
a suggestion on this.
Chair, on the preliminary hearing, this is good.
I have a suggestion on the cross-access agreement on the preliminary plat itself. Could we request that the petitioner does draw in the proposed improvements on lots 8 and lots 9 so that we can see where the parking lot falls with these lot lines? And then on this plat, which would end up being the final plat, then can we have language on the plat that describes the cross-access agreement? And then that can get recorded?
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, but it should also be done on all the other lots within the whole development as well. It's my personal opinion. I mean, because you're using it throughout the whole development and you said, you know, that you're using all the parking, everybody's using there's no assigned spot.
maybe there, we just need to go back and look.
I would recommend that staff does that or
Yeah.
Wickland reviews title or whatever to make sure that.
And what's
that's there.
recorded under the PUD, because as we keep doing new amendments, I'd like to keep seeing where we were the last time as we keep doing this. And if Rachel, you're hanging out with us, that'll help a lot because somebody has to be the PUD expert in the room.
And it's not any of
And
us.
it's not any of us.
So Rachel, I like that suggestion, put it right on the plan, it gets recorded and it's there, so.
Yeah.
Fine with that.
Okay, well, let's work together on that and we can kind of get that in order then.
All right, any other questions for the petitioner? It's a preliminary hearing, folks.
Mr. Chair, if there's no other questions or comments, I'll make a motion to set this for a public hearing.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
And a second, any discussion? Jill? Yes, sir. Come on, it's a timing thing, Councilman.
Yeah, I know, just in time, I can make this count. You know, for Miss Christensen's addition here, she caught something that probably, obviously wasn't caught in the past. and made a suggestion of, and we have had a nice discussion here about what actually is best for the building and the town and tenants, et cetera. And the end result of that is additional language on the plats that clears it up, so as these additional buildings come in, now we've learned something new and we do it even better. So I think that's how government's supposed to work. That was my only comment.
Thank you. Any other comments? There's a motion and a second, Jill.
Okay, Rachel Branigan.
Yeah.
Andy Fogarty.
Yes.
Leanne Miller.
Yes.
Roland Rappen.
Yes.
Brian Speck.
Yes.
Steve Chilowski.
Yes.
Bill Baker.
Yes. All right, moving right along, PC-013, Matt Kimmel, Centennial Village LLC is requesting approval of an amendment to the Centennial Village Planning and Development revisions to the CV design standards and site plan to include a revision of the size, location, and shape of building I and M. Public hearing. Ms. Rachel, let's talk about this.
All right. We're back here again. Let's refresh our memories. Let's go to page 3. These are the proposed changes to the PUD. It's the standards, and it would be changing the conceptual plan that is part of this PUD standards. So building letter I has multiple changes. I think the most significant one would be the rotation of the pad. The number of floors would change from 1 story to 3 stories. And the square footage of the structure will increase from 5,200 square feet to 22,188. Building M will be reduced and moved to the west. The change is going from a residential multifamily to a retail single tenant use. The number of floors will be reduced from 3 stories to 2 stories, and that structure will be approximately 6,950 square feet. And of course, the parking lot that we have so dearly talked about would be changing to accommodate the structure location changes. So you can see the first graphic was the original, and then the one that Jill has up on your screen right now is the proposed changes on the conceptual plan. If you keep scrolling down below in the analysis section, this is what would be changing in the Centennial Village design standards in the language for that PUD. I want to point out, we didn't really discuss this. We did a little bit in our preliminary discussion, but I do want to point out that the purpose of the Centennial Village PUD design standards and the conceptual plan is to provide the town of Munster with a sustainable mixed use and walkable lifestyle community that's adjacent to the key regional thoroughfares of Calumet Avenue and 45th Street. And then of course, the Pensy Greenway is a major design element that goes through the site. I think that walkable and livable community is something that's really important for us to remember as we're talking about this. On the language itself, let's scroll down to my staff recommendation. Some of these are minor, some are a little bit more substantial. I would prefer to be consistent in the document and use the term retail rather than commercial, which is what the petitioner has proposed. One minor thing that Jill and I had talked about is that building F is currently listed in the document as a retail single tenant use, but it is occupied as a retail multi-tenant use. So we would like to see that change also reflected in the Centennial Village document. That wasn't anything that the petitioner had requested. It was probably likely just an oversight at some point. So we just want to make sure that the language is being consistent with what the actual use is. We understand that the petitioner has additional amendments to the conceptual plan that will be presented at a later date. These changes are already being shown on that updated conceptual plan that the petitioner has submitted with this application. To clarify and reduce confusion, we would like to request that that revised conceptual plan only illustrate the changes being approved as part of this petition, or where the hotel site is, if you can just do a hatch over it and label it as excluded at this time. We just want to be clear as to what we're approving tonight, if we do an approval on anything tonight. So do we need to potentially scroll back up so we can talk about that hotel site, Jill?
I can find the building plans.
Can you go to page 4, please? So you can see where I've highlighted the area that we are talking about tonight in red, the brighter red, with building I and building M located inside of it. However, to the south, there is another red outline. And that is changing, that is a future potential change that will be coming before this board. So we want to make sure that if this is the drawing that is approved, or a drawing like this, we want to make sure we hatch out that darker red area and really clearly indicate that that is not part of this approval tonight.
I would say that both these two buildings are different and this whole area here.
Yes.
We're only looking at this, so and this is different than the original. Up here is different than the original.
And those should all be consistent on what's been approved. We can only talking about what's up in the game right now being highlighted. But everything else should be as already
See,
approved.
this is the approved, so this area is different and this area. So we want to, just for future.
We need a in the meantime drawing of what we're actually approving, right?
And that comes from the petitioner or from staff, that drawing?
That is coming from, staff is requesting.
From the petition,
Okay,
both of these drawings.
Well, this one here is actually the original conceptual plan.
right.
So the next one is from us.
Well, we're only approving what's in red.
Only approving what's in red.
And this is the heads up of what things you're gonna be looking for in the future.
Well, not north of Centennial Drive. Jill and I have had conversations on how to get that. I think it's gonna end up a big box, like was on the original plan. We're getting pretty far along on a discussion with the big kosher.
I think it's gonna go back to the original.
Yeah, for the north of, so we,
Okay, wait, before we start going down that path, are you done, Rachel, with yours?
Yes, I'm finished. Those were just my discussion points that I had to consider.
Okay, thank you. And then we're in public hearing. I'm losing track of which one we're doing it on. Did you already say your name and do all that again for this new one? Please do that. Now that you're the petitioner again, I told you 5 times at least. I tried.
three, this is three, hopefully less. Centennial Village, 631 County Line by email. Russ Olson, 1155 Shoreline Road, Company Road.
Thank you, John. Okay. Down the path, this is having to do with design of the buildings in the I and M. Anything else you'd like to add? Any other questions for them? I mean, I'm still somewhat concerned of that 3-story building being so close to 45th and the entranceway off of that right now. Also, I'd have to point out that I'm still liking to see the restaurant move over towards the lake. I see why you're not doing it, but from a perspective of the big picture, at least sitting in this chair, that would be something else that I'd like to at least throw into the soup mix. The parking also along the bike track, I don't know if that'll get down the path, I mean, pun intended, to how it's gonna handle the safety component of the parking up against the bike path. Whether it's landscaping or curbing it or boulders, something. But I don't know when we get, if that's development plan, I sit through so many of these, I don't know anymore, so how many we have to do. This is the big picture. Now, if we approve this one and the building's tilted and it comes back like this, is that something that has to go through a process again? I mean, I'm looking at, how this goes. Maybe this is legal. Every time you change the layout of a building like this, does it have to, go through the process? Meaning, is this the only chance that we say that we like it tilted? That one's not tilted. What I'm looking at is old, is what it is. Sorry.
Well, the applicant, can come before the commission any number of times after it's approved.
Got it.
You're not stuck with, what you're looking at now.
But the commission only has the one bite at the apple of the layout right now.
I think that my opinion is that you're approving the big picture with the docket number,
Mhm.
and then the development plan approval may tweak this a little bit, but am I saying, do you think you agree with me, Rachel?
I do. I think if the intent is still being met with the development plan, I would feel comfortable with moving forward with it. However, if it feels like feels is a terrible word, but it's not measurable, but typically if it's somewhat of a substantial change, it would be something that staff would recommend that it goes back before the board. You know, if a building is moving by 2 feet to the east or something, I wouldn't consider that a major substantial change. However, if you're, you know, moving the building south of what the proposed, like substantially south, like into those parking areas, then I would say that's more of a substantial change that would have to come back before this board. So if the buildings are generally where they're showing them on this, and the parking lots, you know, is generally where, not even generally, if it's showing this concept plan, if we're changing and moving buildings to different areas, then that would be a substantial change.
Now, I mean, usually what is it, 3 or 4 per thousand when you're doing a restaurant for parking ratio?
There's 4 per PUD.
4 per PUD, what if we're not in the PUD? Is it still 4? I think it is. So that's, what is it, 6,000 feet?
So just to back up a minute, to Rachel's earlier point, just approving the plan, we've adjusted each building size. If you go back historically, building B as an example, didn't show up on the conceptual plan like it is today.
Right.
See,
Everyone's changed.
all these have changed slightly in size and kind of, you know, the footprint slightly for various reasons. So to the point Rachel's bringing up, I think what you're approving is just a general concept at this point of where these buildings are going to be, and then the specifics of the details come later in the site plan discussion.
And those development plans will come before this body for approval as well.
So we're not,
We're just doing them all together today because we're trying to get it, yeah.
but there's still development and site work, so there's no construction happening this year.
So they have their development plan review is on the agenda for tonight. Later.
So are we approving these buildings or not? I mean, are we approving the site plan and the conceptual, or are we approving the whole building, the design,
This-
everything?
This docket, this item,
I'm talking about for the whole evening.
Yes.
yes.
But right
You
now,
could be.
but right now, all we're doing is just the idea of where these buildings are going to be on the slide.
The size, location, and shape of buildings I and M.
And their
With
use,
the-
right, because their use is changing.
So if we feel like the building needs to be closer to the lake, we have to make that decision on this docket here now.
I would agree. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not happy with the location of building M,
A few feet, I don't think you do, but if it's.
Well, no, with what was mentioned earlier, I mean, I'd rather, I mean, if I'm sitting in a restaurant, I'd rather be looking at the water than just looking at parking lot and then looking at the water on the main level. So,
And I'm just curious, maybe this is a question for Attorney Woodland. What the duties of the plan commission body are in relation to approving the site plan. Is it up to us to say that the building should be on the, you know, that we know better where the building ought to be placed than the applicant?
I would say-
Mr. Wickland, go ahead.
PUD.
Not PUD.
Yeah, Mr. Woodland.
There's a PUD, you can change it anytime you want, you can come back. In other words, all this talk about you're stuck with what you do tonight, I disagree with that. You want to come back later, now, of course, you have to go through the process, the interview process.
But only if the petitioner wants to change it.
Right.
Not if you want to change it. If you want to change it, you don't have another bite at the apple.
Correct.
I think if you want to change it, go to the town council, that's, you know, they make the final decision anyway. On the amendment of PUD.
Well, and if we do suggest that change, what does that mean for your tenant? If your tenant does not like that, would that, and your tenant's out, obviously, that's not good for anybody.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So look closely at this drawing. Look due east of the building. If you push it back further, you're not closer to the water. You're now looking due east at vacant land. So the way the building sets up, if you look at the renderings, let me just be clear. When you look at the renderings,
You want the renderings?
see, if you look due east, so if we put the building back here, you're gonna look at just due east. The building is set up where you look kind of at an angle, the way it's designed. So to me, I think we run the risk of the tenant saying, well, geez, I don't like the building back that far. I'm not gonna sign the lease and move forward. And B, as the developer won't be building the building. So I think, it's a matter of preference, right? And so we've gone over and over this with the tenants, and this is what they wanted to do. So I trying to reflect that. They're professional restaurateurs that actually started Hampton Social. They know this business. And so I have to rely heavily on them. They're a market participant that knows this stuff. So that's how we came to what we.
So that's what, that, they actually said, this is where I want to build it.
We've had detailed, yeah, so we've had detailed discussions. If you went that far enough, we were originally gonna put it here.
Right, up there.
We're gonna put it here
Right.
in place of building I. Then we looked at different locations forward and backwards, and I think for various reasons, they like this location because you have the combination of parking. If you move this building too far this way, you only have parking on one side of the, that's gonna basically be on the south side, and you won't be able to go on three sides of the building. Most restaurant buildings are 4 sides, so you're giving up some of the access to the building. I don't like the fact that you'd sit and look at a parking lot either, but the focus is gonna be up on the second floor. You're gonna be 15 feet up. You're gonna look right over those cars. You're not gonna see the cars. Most people are gonna be dining on the second floor. It's an attraction.
Mr. Commissioner,
Yeah.
next question. So, Matt, originally, the longer building was right on the angle there. Did you look at, because actually, if you moved that building there, you would have more parking on all sides. Like right now, you know what I'm saying? Like if you took that and you tilted it, and then I'm thinking if it's only parking, people are gonna still easily see, they would see over the cars to be able to see the Windy City Social. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be anything blocking them from Calumet. But then you would have one whole side that, so the first floor, all floors would look out at the lake. Then you have parking on 3 sides. So you'd actually get a little bit more on all, you know what I mean? You're saying it's normally 4 sides.
The statement, the location of building M right now is the highest part of the site. It naturally grades from northwest to southeast by approximately 4 feet. So if that building does get moved, now you look to the west, you're looking up at parking, you look to the east and you just lost 3+ feet of elevation on looking to the lake, to Clayville Lake. So it's from an engineering perspective, it's naturally nicer to be on it where it's at.
On the upper. I guess we can't see that part of it. Yeah.
That's why he's an engineer. We're not.
Yeah. Okay, I was
So
just.
that you do know what the grade is between the building and this actual street as the descent under the bridge happens. If you have that gradient, you should have the gradient from the top of that structure where it is now till it drops to the street.
Yeah, this is at 620, the current version, and doesn't show the walkway here. This is not the most recent, by the way. This is at 620, we're at 603, so the floor is about 16, 17 feet above the street level here. And then the second floor is about 13 feet above that, so it's 613, 633. So you're now at about 29 feet above the street level.
That's significant.
Another comment to make just as planning staff. I think between the 2 versions that we have, with the building that is up along the lake in the original version of this, I think that, it being along the Pensy Greenway, it is a very pedestrian oriented building. When we move the building as proposed in the second drawing, it does become a little more auto-centric. There was a lot of talk about, this is going to be viewed then from 45th Street. So it would be more visible from an auto perspective or a vehicular perspective. However, it is losing that access to the greenway. I know there are some provisions in the drawings that show crosswalks that help lead you to the building, but it is a difference. I would say that one is more pedestrian oriented, the other, and one version is more vehicular oriented.
Yeah, that building, Rachel, it's a residential building.
Right. So I understand that the
Really-
use is
really
changing.
different than what we're doing now, right? So.
Right. I hear you. Yes.
But just on the, you said this is the party who is recommended putting the building in this place and is ready to lease this. They are the founders of the Hampton Social.
They were some of the starters in Hampton Social, and
I'm just looking on the website. They have properties, they have Hampton Socials in Delray Beach, Florida, Miami, Florida, Naples, Orlando. In Chicago River, North, Streeterville, Burbridge, Barrington, and Skokie, and then Nashville, Tennessee, and they have a rooftop property in Nashville, Tennessee. Then you add Munster, Indiana to that list. And it's not a Hampton Social, but there's a Windy City Social.
It's not an application.
No, I mean, I'm just saying that when I look at when I look at the other things that these people who want to come into Centennial Village and build this property, they're pretty remarkable properties.
Why isn't it Hampton Social? If they've got all this branding all over the country, why would they stop here?
the couple of the guys that we're dealing with are actually broke away from them. So again, we're still proving and we're not opposed to going back and actually, once we get to the site plan, and Rachel, maybe you could tell us if we were to move the building 20 feet, 2 parking spaces to the lake or so. I can run that by the users and say, hey, would you be okay with this? That's sort of splitting the difference. I mean, it's meaning we have to redesign the site, redesign all the engineering that went in. And just move it basically. If you had the site plan, it'd be better. Jill.
There are utility easements to the east as well, though.
Yeah, so you'd have to tell me, Russ, if we could do this. There isn't a utility. So if we were to slide the whole thing, basically take out this parking, these parking spaces, move everything this direction 20 feet, we could probably still.
I think I wouldn't say that you're not really changing I don't think that's a substantial enough change. I think, Plan Commission, if you guys want it on the lake, I think you need to articulate that you want this to be on the lake. And if you're fine with it being where the petitioner is proposing it, then, let's stick with that then. But I think it's really, do we want it more visible from 46th Street or 45th Street, or do we want, it to be on the lake where people are looking at the lake and the greenway, and that's kind of our options that I would say we should be debating on where it goes. I don't think moving it over 20 feet to the east or to the west or to the south is really accomplishing anything.
Chairman,
Yes.
I would agree, Rachel, and I would also, I guess at this point, based upon, it seems like this, we're gonna move forward with this, so. Mr. Ozen
Yes.
is the engineer. He's the one who's looked at this land and figured out what's the best place to put it as far as, I'm assuming, drainage and sight lines and everything else. So for us to sit here and question a professional engineer on where the building should be located, it's the same lot, whether it's, they think that that's gonna work for the client, then so be it. I'm not gonna sit there and tell him he needs to move the building down by the water and then all the water drain towards him and then they have a water issue. I'd much rather have the building sit where it's going to be in a position where it's gonna be there for a long time and not be a Centennial Park clubhouse.
I disagree with that just a little. I mean, I agree he is a professional engineer, but I am an architect. Roland is a construction professional, and our opinions are valid. I mean, I think if you're gonna move it, I would move it in a diagonal direction down southeast, right on that corner. And again, I'm not involved with this project as far as the details, but that's what I would like to see as a professional.
Yeah, and I understand the benefits of that, Rachel, being closer to the water, but if you put it in the southeast part of the site, you have essentially no visibility to 45th. And I think that's
Right,
very
right.
concerning is that, hey, we won't be seen, like your earlier point, Brian, is that most people don't know the lake's there. No one ever see this building. It'd be
Yeah.
hard to see.
Well, especially at the level of where that 45th Street's gonna be going, you're gonna,
Right.
I mean, you're 29 feet below, you're not gonna see that building up there if it's further back.
Not at all correct.
So we're trying to get the benefits of both, right?
Sure,
That's what we're
yeah.
trying to.
No, I agree. I just don't think that moving it 20 feet, it's, it either stays there or it's a drastic.
Yeah, I
I'd like-
agree.
I like people to discover the lake because they're going to these properties, which they see from the road. One thing we're very strict on is signing ordinances. Other places you'd see pole signs and flashing lights saying Windy City Social this way. So having the building there.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we want to push back on building I-4. We want to get people going eastward in the development. And this is a way for them to be familiar with the lake and see it as they go back. That's why we think the hotel, we want to build that road that goes in front of the future proposed hotel, where people will actually be much closer to the lake. That's going to help us infill the rest of the development that much better, right? So I want to push the visibility, the awareness back towards the lake of the Munster community.
Yeah, I think it's good to have this conversation now with the all commission here, I know obviously you want to get these buildings in and we're focusing almost like some of the mistakes we made at Symbol, where we got all the outlying properties done and we still haven't got the interior stuff. So I want to reiterate how important it is to try to move on the next condominium building before we start looking at future hotels and other buildings, because I don't think that's the way we want to go with the town. We need to get the four corridors, the main quarter towers of this development going to. And I know you have clients that are leased and all that stuff in these areas, but if it came up to me in a week or 6 months and we don't have a plan to do a building 2 for the condo, I wouldn't be supporting any kind of hotel company now or anything until we come up with a timeline and a deadline that we're holding,
Fully agree, Ron, that this is, it's interesting. As we build more buildings, it makes it more attractive for
Right,
residents. We build these two, we build a grocery store across the street. I gotta tell you, it makes building H a lot easier.
I agree.
Right now, people walk in building G and say, well, this is an open field. When's this gonna actually be filled in?
Right,
And we show that there's other amenities for them to take part of. Huge interaction between, relationship
I
between.
agree.
So
I think both these buildings are great. It'd be great if it's closer to the lake. I can understand your visibility issue because you want to draw clients to that and draw buzz to come in. So it's kind of like catch-22 between the two of them, obviously. The 3-story building, I don't have a problem with that either. I think it'd be a nice amenity. I don't mind the density on that. What I want to see is I'd like to have the site development plan review because I would like to go through the architectural, make sure all this building materials match our standards and match the adjacent buildings that we already built.
Yeah.
So that'll be the conversation down. If this is approved tonight, I want to make sure we still go back the site plan review process, the vet these 2 buildings with the building materials.
yeah, it's the same stone, same brick, same facade on both these buildings.
Okay.
And we'll be coming forth for the plan review for building I. We have renderings, the plans are completed, they're all for bid, GCs are bidding it right now, so that's yet to come, but we are wanting to move forward on building them as soon as possible.
All right.
Any other questions or comments for the petitioner?
I'll go quickly. Right on time. I know I've had the benefit of seeing the one we're not talking about today and just wanted to share that as we want properties on the lake that really feature that, and people having weddings and banquets and rooftop and cocktail bars and all that. That building is really, from what we've seen in the renderings, is really targeted at making the best possible use of the lake and even creating the vista line to there. So that's part of the reason I'm less concerned with this one restaurant being on the lake, because it's going to be built out by the other things that are in plan.
And I've also put forth some discussions about the lake. We talk as the lake if it's an amenity. My view, it is a partial amenity, but it needs work. I really believe. And part of what I put forth is that through the next discussion we're going to have on the PUD changes, hopefully in the next month or two, is to actually contribute some funds through that process to reshape, beautify the lake, however that looks, right? To make it look like a viewable lake opposed to seeing drag lines across the bottom of it in the summertime, right? So we really want to make it as nice as possible. So it is something that's an amenity. Right now, it's sort of an in-betweener.
I don't know where we are right now, so.
Well, if you guys are done, with the diatribe, we need to have a motion.
Did we do the public?
Yes, I don't think we've had a public hearing.
All right, the public hearing is now open. Either nobody's here, public meeting's closed. Oh, is there somebody online? I'm sorry, I forget about Zoom people.
There's one left with us.
Are they sleeping? So I close the public hearing. Bring it back to the board.
No, sir, I'm here. I'm not sleeping, man.
All right. Would you like to
First
speak?
off, my name's first name Melvin, last name Barang. I live off 920 Camellia. I'm one of the condo owners here.
Okay,
I received this letter regarding what does it say? PUD amendment. I don't understand. Could you rephrase that, in a layman's term?
It's a amendment to the planned unit development, which is what we've been discussing. A planned unit development is a special ordinance that has a special set of rules that is not, it's different than your zoning ordinance. So it's a special zoning ordinance just for where you're living, not your particular building, but the
Does that
site
mean,
around.
I'm sorry, but does that mean you guys pushing us out as owners of the condo? Or what's going on? I mean, are you guys gonna offer us the property value of the condo, what it's worth right now?
No,
don't
this is not pushing you out from where you're living whatsoever. The only thing that we are discussing tonight is the future building M and the future building I, and how those buildings look like on the site.
so sir, what happens with an ordinance or a statute for a development like this that are having changes? There's a certain distance from the property. Any property owner within that distance gets a letter to let the neighbors know what's going on in the community. So the
Okay.
reason for that letter is your distance, that your space is within that distance from where we're talking about, which is Centennial Village. Have you been there?
Yes, sir. I walk there every day after work. So it's a very nice developed property, and I'm glad that I'm actually a bike rider myself. It'd be nice and perfect if you guys actually develop that little sidewalk after the sky bridge and over the railroad tracks.
Right. Good idea.
Appreciate that. Yep. I guess that's it, man. That's the only concern I have.
Okay. Keep visiting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. See, Zoom. All right, we closed it. We had it. You got his name and everything on the record?
No.
It's on the recording.
Melvin, 940.
10-4. All right, bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to recommend approval of PC docket number 23-013 to consider an amendment to Centennial Village Plan Unit Development revisions to the Centennial Village Design Standards and Conceptual Plan regarding the size, location, and shape of buildings I and M with the following conditions. Revisions to the proposed, number one, revisions to the proposed building and land use language for consistency purposes within the document. Change the term commercial to retail. Number two, revisions to the proposed conceptual plan to only show the changes requested building I and M and associated parking lots, so maybe hashing out, somehow making it clear we're only talking about the red box. And then to number three, to revise any references to building F to be a retail multi-tenant rather than retail single tenant to reflect how it's actually being used.
There's a motion. There's a second.
Second,
And a second. Any discussion?
are we adding the definition in regards to the, on the plot? Do we have to put that in here? in regards
That's the
to-
next, that's in the next one.
Beautiful, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Yes.
question. We're talking about the design standards on this one as well, right? That's part of this motion. Are we making sure, obviously, the building materials match the existing building materials that are out there?
They do.
They do.
There's no
'Cause I
change.
haven't seen building I, so I'm guessing, you know?
We're not approving that drawing as part of this petition. But we're approving what is in the design standards. And that is not changing from what the previous design standards were.
I didn't want to plan review regarding that. But, okay, perfect.
Any other discussion? Call for a vote.
Rachel Brannigan.
Yeah.
Andy Colruyt.
Yes.
Leanne Mellon.
Yes.
Roland Rath.
Yes.
Ryan Speck.
Yes,
Steve Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Bill Baker.
Yes. Not going anywhere. PC 23-014, May Kimball Centennial Village LLC requesting approval of a subdivision replat of Lot A to create two new lots, Lot 8 and Lot 9, in Centennial Village Plan Unit Development. Ms. Christensen. we
All
talked
right.
about it, didn't we?
We might have talked about this one already. What I have in my notes, so generally, yes, we're subdividing a lot into Lot 8 and Lot 9. We talked about the stair stepping. We had a great discussion with our preliminary hearing, and I believe where we ended up on this is that we want to get a revised preliminary plat that shows the proposed improvements. So where the structures will be and where the parking lot will be. That's kind of, so the lot lines will be overlaid on, I guess, the site plan. So we can see where that parking lot falls within all of this. And then there will be some language on this preliminary plat that talks about the cross-access agreement. So that when this does go to final plat and gets recorded, it's all part of that final plat.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Christensen on this subject matter? Either none. Gentlemen, would you like to say something on this particular matter? If you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Russ Posen, 1155 Troutland Road, Crown Point, Indiana. Yes, as far as the cross-access agreement language on the plat and then the primary plat showing the proposed conditions, we've done this before, and I mean, I think I and my client fully agree that we can accommodate that in the plat.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner on the way the lots look? Either none. It's a public hearing. Still nobody here. There's nobody on Zoom either.
No, just me.
Okay. Closing the public hearing. Bring it back to the board. Comments, motions, suggestions?
I'm going to approve docket, PC docket number 23-014, replat of Lot A to create two lots, Lot 8 and Lot 9 in the Centennial Village Plan Unit Development with following conditions: replace post stair step boundary lines between Lot 8 and Lot 9. and
It's
replace-
saying that they want to move it. You want to move them?
I think we didn't want to do
Yeah,
that.
we decided to keep the
you just need to
same
cross that six easement.
Yeah.
We would-
Go ahead.
I would suggest that the conditions be that we get an updated drawing or
It's fine.
that we would have a drawing that shows the proposed improvements with the lot lines. And then language for the cross access agreement on that same drawing. So it'd be on the, we would want to revise preliminary plat showing the parking lot and the structures in relation to the new lot lines. And then have language on the plat about the cross access agreement.
So move.
There's a motion and there's a second.
Sorry, thank you.
Any discussion?
Mr. Baker,
Sure.
just to be
Just
clear,
us.
Bill, just to be clear, I think the motion was to divide lot A into two lots, lot 8 and 9.
Yes.
We're only dividing a portion of lot A. Lot A is much, much larger, so we're taking a portion of lot A and creating lot 8 and 9. It's not all lot A. Lot A extends much further to the south. There's about 10 acres. That's all part of lot A. So just the way you worded that was, we're taking all of lot A and breaking it to 8 and 9. We're only taking a portion of it.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Kimmel.
Make sure you put a portion up.
So see, this is, well, because it says, replat lot A to create two new lots. I think it should be read.
Replat of a portion of lot A.
Okay.
Portion.
Mr. Wickland, how am I absolutely crushing the, who's that guy that we had me call the rule?
Robert.
Robert? I mean, I'm a contrarian, but I don't know. You go to jail in public, public sector stuff. Doing that. So, I mean, are we okay with this motion in second or? Help me out here.
I think it's okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? The motion is second, Jill?
Rachel Branigan. Yeah. Andy Colrane.
Yes.
Leanne Allen.
Yes.
Roland Raffin.
Yes.
Brian Speck.
Yes,
Steve Chilowitzy.
Yes.
Bill Baker.
Yes, moving right along, PC 23-15. And Kimmel is here with Centennial Village LLC is requesting approval of development plan. The building M within Centennial Village Plan Unit Development. Ms. Christensen.
We're rounding home base, you guys. Okay, so I just want to reiterate, Centennial Village was designed to be a sustainable, mixed-use, walkable lifestyle community. We wanted to create a pedestrian-oriented environment for the Centennial Village. The Pensy Greenway is an integral part of this development. I did go through the design standards through each section, and I did list some things that I wanted to point out and make sure that we were considering as we were looking at this petition. Mr. Kimmel did note earlier that I don't know if the most up-to-date plans are part of this petition or this submittal. And there might be some comments that I have that may have already been addressed in.
This is what we see here in this packet is not the most up to date.
Okay. Well, I apologize then if I am pointing out any things that I think need to be changed that are a part of your updated set of drawings. I would say that we would probably need to take another look at those too.
Make it a condition if you see those differences between what he's talking about and what you've already had.
Yes.
Yes.
Section 4 talks about building materials and architectural design standards, and section 6 talks about building design elements. I put these two together. They're proposing a single retail for a single tenant use for building M within the PUD. That petition proposes that building M would be a 2-story structure. The renderings that have been submitted with this application appear to be in line with these standards. But when we do the building permit, of course, we'll take another look at them to make sure that the final set of drawings matches up with what is in the design standards. We did obviously look at the drawings earlier. They're at the very end of this petition, the last 2 sheets of it. So if you guys want to take another look at those. For site circulation, one of the things that we've already talked about, but we did pull building M off of the Pensy Greenway. It's obviously moved further to the west. But the set of drawings that I was looking at, it appeared that the sidewalk along the south side of 45th Street had not been included in those submitted drawings, which Mr. Kimmel Can you maybe speak to that? Are those as part of your final drawings?
Sidewalk along 45th was removed from the development plan.
It was removed? Okay,
Along 45th, there's access and pedestrian ways to get to the path on the site plan, the current one. that we
Okay.
did.
well, that was something that I noted in my staff report that I guess I would prefer to see the site plan modified, well, at least modified to show how pedestrians using building M would then navigate to building I, because I think that's a missing piece that is in the set of drawings that I reviewed. There is connections from building M to the Pensy Greenway, and then also going south to the future structures that would be to the south of building M, but it didn't look like there was a clear pathway to get from building M over to the future building I. As for parking, we've talked a lot about parking already tonight. Lots 8 and 9 would share parking. As per our last petition, there will be that cross-access agreement. So that is getting met. We just want to make sure that I believe that the petitioner is meeting your parking lot standards. For retail single tenant, there's 3.25 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross building floor area. You know, when I do a calculation on it, that means a minimum of 23 spaces are required. Once we get a building I in there, it's likely going to meet the standards for that as well. So I don't have any concerns with parking. The landscaping plan has been included with a set of drawings. So I think if you scroll down, Jill, it was closer to the end of the packet. There are some trees that are indicated on the landscape plan that are not on the approved tree list for parking lots, islands, and general landscaping. The tables that were included in the design standards. So one of my requests would be either doing an updated landscaping plan with the trees from the adopted lists, or if those trees are unavailable from nurseries, if we can just get an email from the petitioner letting us know, why they were not using the tree list, if it's an acceptable swap out of trees, if it's something very similar. I think we should request that. As part of the design standards, section 14 talks about site furniture, fixtures and equipment. It talks about having a standard set of those fixtures throughout the entire PUD, and that there should be a plan that shows where the locations of bike racks, decorative trash receptacles, benches, and plant containers would be. So I will be requesting that we have those shown on a future site plan. Utility service, during site plan review, it was requested that the water main be relocated to the utility easement to the west. I guess one of the questions that we have as staff is that, we just would like to understand better the reason that this request could not be accommodated. And then in terms of stormwater management, this is a little out of my wheelhouse, so if I say this incorrectly, I apologize, but the maintenance of the hydrodynamic separator is not included in the post-construction stormwater management plan. We would request that this addition be made to the drawing set. And that is my staff analysis, and my staff recommendation is our listed points 1 through 7. And those are ones that I had touched on each section of the Centennial Village or of the staff analysis.
Is that the transition again?
Yes, I'll kick it back to you.
Okay, thanks. Shoot me away, so I'm gonna pick that up somehow.
I know. I need to get
Is there
better
a
at this.
landscaping-
You like
in
that.
the landscaping PUD plan, were you required to do irrigation? Every other commercial development in town has an irrigation requirement for its landscaping, so it doesn't look like burnt up mess. So my question is that applicable to a PUD, or does that have to be put in specifically as a part of that program? You're it, deputy town manager.
I would say that I don't know, I would say it has to be like irrigated.
So are you irrigating the corner currently at 45th and Calumet Avenue, where the patio dining at Rosebud is occurring next to the traffic.
Got a question for the petitioner?
I don't know. I guess it is. You would know better than the property manager than,
You're irrigated Hampton, the hotel and everything.
yeah. So it's all irrigated. So that's part of the PUD. Because I didn't see that in the landscape plan as far as showing that it was irrigated.
Well, I don't believe, and Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe it specifies in the development standards, design standards, that we need to have irrigation. Although we do, every building does have irrigation. But it's not.
I'm pulling them up right now to take a look. I do remember reading something about irrigation, but for some reason I'm thinking it wasn't required for.
Irrespective of it, it's intended to be part of building M. We're gonna irrigate the site for the landscape. Just as we have all the other buildings.
That was the question. Thank you. And this is a cool building, man.
This is.
All right, any other questions for staff? All right, petitioners, there's someone here to speak on behalf of PC 23-15.
What's her name?
Sorry.
And that Kimball Symphony Road next to the one.
Proposing 1155 Frontline Road Company again.
She makes some stuff up.
So this plan that you see on the landscape, I just want to draw the difference. This is the more current version. The site plan that was put up initially, a couple slides up, was issued on June the 8th. This was resubmitted to the staff on June 20th. And it does show, if I may highlight and these are comments that came back from the staff meeting, that we needed some connection directly to the trail. So we added this, and then we added this directly here, because when the rest of the buildings are built out, this is going to be the primary connection point. And yet there's yet another connection. We're going to put a walkway between building M and building I across the pavement stripes. So again, I made a comment earlier about being connected right to the trail to the front door. This is the main entrance to the restaurant. Ride your bike, walk right up to the restaurant.
If we look at the concept plans, though, it does appear that there is a sidewalk that would be along 45th Street, and it looks like it would go to the back of building M, and then it would make it so that you could connect along 40, you could walk along 45th Street and then get to the future building I. I do have some concerns if we cut a crosswalk across the parking lot. Like, I'm curious what that would look like. It just seems like quite a distance to be going through a parking lot without having a landscape island or something for people to pause at.
Those people parking there. That's gonna be a tough park anyway.
So to speak to the sidewalk request along 45th, that was looked at, but that is not a safe pathway. The
Okay.
existing topography is a 3-to-1 slope going down towards 45th, so it's not quite very safe. And the way that the 45th was built to go in the underpass, there's not a ton of room to put in a sidewalk flat and safe. And the location along 45th of a proposed sidewalk would actually go into the walls of the,
Right, this is the wall of the bridge.
Thank you.
Right here,
Thank
and then
you.
this is fence, so it's not really,
you would be walking and you have to turn a 90 degrees south to get to an actual pedestrian path. So in this configuration, after discussion with staff at the staff review meeting, we felt that it was better to add these sidewalks and the striped pedestrian access points from the south of the building and then east to the building. And they do connect to North Centennial Drive in a location that was actually discussed in staff previously when we did building F. So we are getting them through the site safely and efficiently, and probably a little more direct to the uses that they want to go, specifically to get to building M in the restaurant and then go directly from building M to the pedestrian pathway to the east.
Thank you for explaining that. And
What are the ideas again from I on this drawing right here to walk to the path?
I'll put that off, you can,
Yeah, because
here you go.
I went to IU, I need to see pictures.
Sure, we like pictures,
Cartoons.
we like pictures,
It's crayon.
you know, maybe go to the site plan,
Yeah.
just for, obviously, we've seen the pedestrian path, just to get everybody's mind, let's stop, we'll go from east to west. Pedestrian path, the bike path, pedestrian access with a raised 8-foot sidewalk, then a curb ramp, an ADA ramp into the facility, all ADA accessible. And then sidewalk is all around the building. And then when we go north-south, again, we have pedestrian access with raised sidewalks to get to the south. And once we're here of the south of the main east-west drive, and go to the site plan if you don't mind. Yep, and then scroll up a little bit. So, the other way.
Oh, wait, hold on, you're in my way, I can't.
And then you went. Slender fellow, so.
You can just put your finger on the screen.
Okay. So this pedestrian access, we'll get here, and this, where you see this, this hatched area, this is the future main pedestrian sidewalk associated with these buildings that will go east-west to get all the way to the crosswalk to go north and into the sidewalk of Building I. And the reason why we go from the south to north to Building I is we, on the west side for Building F, the crosswalks actually, instead of going east-west, and this was a discussion with staff and the engineer and the like, instead of having the pedestrian access at the largest part of North Centennial Drive, we get them south into the narrow, safer locations. So pedestrians go east-west here and then come back. So it's a good game plan. I think it's safe, it's protected, and I think it does get directly to where everybody wants to be.
And I'll just point out also that there is no sidewalk on 45th, the underpass. There is no sidewalk and there's no room for a sidewalk. So there won't ever be the ability to have pedestrian traffic on 45th Street. So that's why we pushed that crosswalk in more into the development, because you'll never have anybody walking underneath the train tracks on 45th.
So is this the time to talk about, again, my question, if I'm in building I, and I want to go to the restaurant, I'm not doing that whole thing you just said, Russ, right? I'm walking across the parking lot to the dang restaurant.
Yes, and you don't see it on this site plan, but it will be added. This is parking with sidewalk. There will be a striped access from the parking through here, and this parking space will go away into the sidewalk. So there'll be a more direct.
Having the parking spaces that are up on the north side, like that, I mean, that's kind of unique, isn't it?
It's unique, but it's direct and it'll be striped and.
Because people in Munster run into buildings, you know that, right?
We did have a car kitchen, cell phone, right?
Oh, really?
Did you really?
A couple years ago, yeah, someone ran all the Calumet Avenue into the kitchen.
Have you put the big concrete things in front of there yet, so they doesn't run in your buildings anymore? They have those big round ball things like that time, and then they have the ones that are they have planters, but just so people don't run in your building, because that happened in my building, that's not fun.
Planters?
Yeah, and stop the cars from jumping the car.
The car hit the planter that went to my building.
Planter wasn't heavy enough.
People drive their cars everywhere, so much so I know that we've had discussions previously, Rachel, for your historical benefit about the size of the sidewalks along Calumet Avenue, these massive sidewalks we built. I've got pictures of people driving their cars down them. I think they're runners.
Because
They're so wide, they're 12 feet or whatever. They.
they're not so pretty.
Great.
Well, they think it's the dedicated right turn lane on 45th, which, by the way, we need.
But Bill, to your point, once you see the images of Building I, the main entrance is on the east side. So there will actually be a sort of main entrance to this walk, and so it's a direct kind of walk to that main entrance.
And I didn't know why we were talking about walk past to get to the thing. So there wasn't one in Building I, so that was my question. Yeah. Anything else?
Quite frankly, the walkways in this end are more designated than they are in the rest of the development. So go from building B to C to D, it's not that clear, right? So this is clarifying for them.
Thank you. Anything else for these gentlemen? All right, it's a public hearing. I'm gonna open a public hearing, so everybody, stand back. All right. All right, since nobody's here, we're going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. Ladies and gentlemen. Past my bedtime.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve PC docket number 23-015, a development plan of building M within Centennial Village Plan Unit Development with the conditions recommended by staff. There are 7 of them listed, which are.
I would say though, you want to remove item 2.
Sorry, item 2, you said?
Mhm.
Oh, the addition of a sidewalk on the south side of 46, yeah. So with the
45th.
recommendations, with the conditions recommended by staff, 1 and 3 through 7.
I cannot get that road name right, you guys. I'm sorry.
46th Street.
Okay, we gained some new streets
And
tonight.
then that included all the points you brought up, Rachel, correct?
Yes, it did. And just for clarification, I pulled up the landscape irrigation requirements and it's not required for these lots. Just so you're aware.
But the petitioner standing based on his statements earlier.
Make it a condition.
Yes. That's on my motion.
That's not your motion, though.
So perhaps recommendation number 2 could read, how would the plan commission like to say that? Irrigation, landscaping, irrigation be added.
Who made the second?
I made the second. I will, I'll second that motion, that revised motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I just want to bring this up. Mr. Kim, I think we've been pretty helpful tonight in trying to help move things along. I would strongly discourage staff and everyone else on this commission to try to push things through in a preliminary hearing and a public hearing in one night. I don't think things are properly vetted as well on the commission side. And we get documents on Friday. I was in Europe. And then I get a revision on a Monday. Doesn't give me enough time to do due diligence. And I think we should stick to our process in the future. Preliminary hearing 1 month, set up a public hearing the next one. I don't think this is the way we want to go in the future.
Thank you. Anybody else? The motion is second. Jill?
Rachel Brandon.
Yeah.
Andy Colderay.
Yes.
Leanne Allen.
Yes,
Roland Rath.
Yes.
Brian Speck.
Yes.
Steve Chluzinski.
Yes.
Bill Baker.
Yes. Gentlemen, thank you for your patience. Congratulations, and we appreciate your investment in the town of Munster.
Thank you, thank you.
Next up is a developmental plan review. Is that what we just did, or is that something
Yes,
new?
we did that.
did it.
So next up is finding of facts, PC 23-10, J. Leeser Maple Leaf Crossing LLC requesting approval of an amendment to the Maple Leaf Crossing Plan Unit Development to add parking spaces and modify lots 2 through 7 and outlots A and B. We need a motion to approve the findings of facts for something we already approved.
I make a motion to approve the finding of facts for PC 23-010.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second, any discussion? Ms. Jill?
Rachel Brandon.
Yes.
Andy Colderay.
Yes.
Leanne Allen.
Yes,
Roland Rath.
Yes.
Brian Speck.
Yes.
Steve Chluzinski.
Yes.
Bill Baker.
Yes. Next up, PC 23-011, J. Leeser Maple Leaf Crossing LLC and HP Munster LLC are requesting approval of a subdivision. A replat of the Maple Leaf Crossing PUD to modify lots 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, G, and outlots A and B. Findings of fact. Looks like we did the whole thing like every other one.
I make a motion to approve the findings of fact of docket number PC 23-011.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Ms. Jill?
Rachel Brandon.
Yes.
Andy Colderay.
Yes.
Leanne Allen.
Yes,
Roland Rath.
Yes.
Brian Speck.
Yes.
Steve Chluzinski.
Yes.
Bill Baker.
Yes.
I make a
All
motion.
right, next up is other business, additional items for discussion. Is there anything that anybody wants for the better of the order at 20 to 10? Be there none, the next regular scheduled meeting of Mr. Speck, you could be here is August 8th, 2023, because you being here is outstanding.
I make a motion.
And we like to
adjourn
motion
this
to
meeting.
adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
You know, and I'm gonna be a contrarian and say, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Who was the-
Could write me up.
Who made the motion to adjourn? Sorry.
I second it.
I wanted to do it
Back
back
me
an
the
hour.
flag.
That was a delay.
Jordan, would be right, the ordinance to allow the pool covers, the safety pool covers instead of the fencing, because if so, we should write that.
It was.
We should.
The building code, the NPR building code
Allows it.
does not require fences,
Right. Okay.
and I think my understanding. I guess,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, stop your word.
Thank you.
Hi, guys.
Thanks, Rachel.
Bye.
Okay, so we don't have to go, we don't have to go for variance anymore, if they put it on the pool card.
You don't have to put a fence up around the pool
It
anymore?
was discussed at the council and decided again.